Yes, that time when we get some real education. And we're going to head to Canada. The Canadian National Vimy Memorial is a war memorial in France that's dedicated to the memory of Canadian Expeditionary Force members killed during World War I. It also commemorates Canadian soldiers of World War I killed in France who have no known grave. The monument is on a 250-acre preserved battlefield park that encompasses a portion of the ground over which the Canadian Corps made their assault during the Battle of Vimy Ridge during the Battle of Arras. The battle became a Canadian national symbol of achievement and sacrifice. The grand project took designer Walter Seymour Allward 11 years to build.
And I want to first point out that this really beautiful memorial, it's in France, has been recommended to us at the Dr. Duke Show by viewer Carolyn Peterson. So Carolyn, thank you so much for doing that. I was unfamiliar with this battlefield monument before you suggested it. So we're really grateful here at the Dr. Duke Show when you turn us on to some new instant classics, right? We're just turned on, aren't we, Katie? You turned on?
Nope.
I'm turned on. I'm turned on by this. Turned on by education. So take a look at some of the monuments here. This really does mark the moment. And you in the context of everything we've been talking about in this show, how long is it before Western liberal democracies like the Canadians, like the Americans, start coming after these monuments? How soon before these monuments to the bravery of those who fought in wars, right? Whether the wars were just or not, that comes under the ire of our protesting clown show progressive left. But this is the Vimy Memorial, right? And it marks the Canadian history books, at least pre-modern ones, pointed to this battle. It's the first time in Canadian history, really, where four unified divisions, almost the entire excursionary corps of the Canadian Army, fought in unison against a foreign enemy. And it was done here against the Boche, against the Germans. There were a number of the French had tried to dislodge the German control of this ridge. The British tried to dislodge it, couldn't do it. There were a brave corps of Moroccan fighters fighting with the Allies who tried to dislodge the Germans from this ridge and couldn't do it. And it was the Canadians who finally did. And over a 2 or 3 days in 1917, they managed to get to, right after Easter, they managed to get and take over this ridge that the Germans had very strategic position and lost about 4,000 men and about 10,000 casualties overall. 3,000, almost 4,000 had died. And when after the war was over, the French government gave the Canadian people, like they gave after World War II, parts of the beaches of Normandy, overlooking Normandy, for the beautiful American monument to those who helped the D-Day push. The French gave a 250-acre plot on the ridge, or near the ridge, to the Canadian government. And over a series of years, they built this monument. And as you can see, it's a beautiful thing. It's very clean and sober. A certain kind of limestone the sculptor wanted. He wanted a limestone that was luminous and that over time would not fade. He actually found it in an ancient Roman mine in what is today modern Serbia, I believe, or Croatia. Croatia, I think it is. So it's luminous limestone. And if you look at some of the haunting figures there, so the figures of suffering, justice, peace, liberation, it really is a nice combination of classical. I mean, it was actually very Art Deco before Art Deco really took off, when you stop and think about it there. And so very well done. And what is interesting about this monument is on this 250-acre grounds, they have live ammunition that was never exploded from World War I, is strategically positioned. They have actual tunnels and trenches from the battlefield on that site that have been there ever since 1917. And for a lot of reasons, because of the dangerousness of the site, generally speaking, visitors, the public isn't allowed to see most of the site. They can get to that, but they're not allowed, they're very often discouraged from walking around the ground. So it is a very deeply guarded and very important message, a monument that many people have pointed to, the moment where Canada as a country coalesced and became a culture of its own, with its own commitments and its own self-agency, and that they point to that moment as a unifying one for the Canadians, at least as long as the history books remain written by people who care about such things.